Good morning, everyone. Well, we have a very, very interesting show for you today. We are obviously close to election time, so it's an important time. But we're going to have a good friend of mine on first, someone who is no stranger to Erie County, someone who first started off as an intern to Governor George Pataki, was a staffer for Congressman Tom Reynolds, and then became the Erie County chair. And when he became the Erie County chair, he was the youngest he was the youngest chairman at the time. So Nick Langworthy, Congressman now Nick Langworthy. So Nick, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great, Mr. Chairman. It's great to be with you.
Well, Nick, you and I have had a long past with regard to politics. You've done an excellent job as the Erie County chairman, a fantastic job as our state chairman, and now doing a great job as our congressman. I'm very proud to have this relationship with you. So, look, there's a lot of things going on that, we need you to talk about. So, first of all, you were a supporter of Trump from the very beginning. You and I went to Trump Towers in 2014 to try to convince Trump to run for governor. He wasn't planning to run for governor. That didn't work out. But you were there right from the very beginning, right?
Our relationship is, pre-presidency, which, most people I serve with in Congress don't have that kind of longevity with the president. He is doing a terrific job. It's a novel idea where you actually deliver on the promises that you made, and he's done that. Look at the fact he secured the border. We have virtually zero illegal crossings at our southern border. During the Biden years, we had potentially as many as 20 million people come across the border illegally. The greatest, security breach in the history of the country. And we're paying the price for that still. It is a very expensive proposition. We're making great gains with people through the self-deportation incentives that we've put forward, but also our ICE agents. And, I am a big proponent of our Buffalo ICE office. I visit with them and communicate with them quite a bit. They're people that have the jurisdiction of all of upstate New York. And, they're getting that serious, dangerous criminal element that's come into the country illegally out. And that's gives peace of mind to people around the country. And, you listen to the liberal nonsense that tries to create a different narrative. These are people that came to the country illegally and have committed crimes. And they do not have business being here, and they need to find the nearest exit. So that's exactly what the president's delivering. What we accomplished this year in the big, beautiful bill, now we're calling it the Working Families Tax Cut Plan, because that's exactly what it is. It is a true relief for the American working people. We have made permanent the doubling of the standard deduction that President Trump achieved in 2017. We've made permanent and then added to the enhanced child tax credit that puts more money in the pockets of families that are growing their families. And that's what we need our country to do. We need it to be more centered around families and people having children so we can raise our birth rate and be a strong country into the future. Today is the No Kings Rally Day. We have an awful lot of we'll see all kinds of footage. That's why I appreciate the opportunity to talk to your audience here, Mr. Chairman, because the mainstream media doesn't give us the opportunity to have these kind of long-form discussions.
So that's exactly right. If people want to get real information, that's not tainted, that's not slanted, that's not totally against Trump because it's Trump, they got to get it from talk radio, and that's what this station is all about, The Patriot. And so, look, it's people like you being able to communicate with our audience as to what's going on. As you said, promises made, promises kept. The first one being immigration, and an excellent, excellent job on that. But then, again, the big, beautiful bill, which substantially lowers taxes and puts working people, back to work and prioritizes working people.
And it does so much more than that. That is the core is the tax code. Beyond that, every single department of Congress, every single department of the federal government has massive implications. Let's talk about immigration. The money's in the big beautiful bill to finish the wall. No argument necessary anymore. It's done, paid for in full, and that construction's ongoing. It gives Tom Homan and ICE the money to move ahead on the deportations. There's the money in there in the transportation side to a massive down payment of $12 billion to modernize our air traffic control, which is critical infrastructure for our country. I mean, when you go in the air traffic control towers, and I'm the chairman of the Aviation Safety Caucus, it's like something out of a Cold War era movie. Our air traffic control officers literally hand each other back and forth slips of paper. I mean, things that you wouldn't think would be possible in this modern digital age where we have so much technology on our iPhone, but they look like they're on 80s era mainframe computers, and it's just absurd. But we have a huge down payment on the moonshot to modernize our air traffic control. That's going to be a $60 billion plan, and Secretary Sean Duffy has done an amazing job outlining what we need to do. We need to get more people into the industry of air traffic control. It's a great career. It pays pretty well, and it certainly comes with some stress, but it also comes with some benefits that you wouldn't get in other elements of government service. So, I'm a huge proponent of them, and that's one of the big crimes of this government shutdown right now is those air traffic controllers who are stressed to the max. They have to show up every day, and they don't know when their next paycheck's coming. Now, they'll be made whole on the back end, but it's all of the essential workers. There's a whole ton of workers that are furloughed. Now, they didn't ask for the vacation time, and they certainly are going to have to figure out their finances, but they're not showing up every day. But if you look at our Border Patrol, our customs agents, our air traffic controllers, the doctors and nurses at the VA hospital, they don't know when their paycheck's coming. Those are the people that we're the most concerned about in federal service. I mean, we outlined a lot during the DOGE process of a lot of waste in the federal government. And I remember just a few short months ago, Chuck Schumer and Gillibrand and all of our Congress members from New York and on the left were losing their minds about how badly the federal employees were being treated. But now here we are in a shutdown where the House of Representatives has passed an extension of current Biden-level funding for 52 days that they've eaten a big hole into already, and the Senate is using the filibuster to prevent the government from serving the people that pay for it.
So I have this letter in front of me from October 10th that you signed. You're one of the signatures on this letter to Chuck Schumer and Kristen Gillibrand about this very same thing. The people who Chuck Schumer, argued not so long ago that you can't use politics. You've got to continue funding the government, and yet they're playing politics. And this is the Schumer shutdown, isn't it?
This is the Schumer shutdown. He's the leader. He's the most powerful Democrat in the country. The Senate answers to him on the Democratic side of the aisle. And he's calling the play, and he's telling them, keep it shut down. And you're going to have these No Kings rallies around, and you're going to see an awful lot of blue hair and green hair and signs that don't even make sense. And they have an extremely angry base that has Trump derangement syndrome. And Chuck Schumer did the right thing back in March and kept the government open, and they hung him in effigy. And he couldn't, for his own politics, he's so afraid of AOC. He thinks AOC is going to primary him. And you know what? If she doesn't run for president, she probably is going to. She'll probably chase him out of the race because he's afraid of her. He's so afraid of her that he's done this shutdown to say he's fighting back against Trump. That's all this is obstruction. Because, President Trump is probably the most polarizing figure in the history of the country. You love him or you hate him. There's not a lot of in between. There's not many people you're going to find that don't have a strong opinion one way or the other about the president, but to their base, it's a rageful hate, and they want to see his agenda stopped, him harmed, and a total shutdown of the government, which would have been blasphemy for Democrats in times gone by, is what they've decided to do to show that they're fighting back. They're not going to get anything, Ralph. We are sticking to our guns. The House has passed a clean bill. Chuck Schumer, had a lot to say about this when Joe Biden was in the office, and Republicans joined Democrats 13 times to pass continuing resolutions in the Biden years because it's the right thing to do. I don't believe in shutdowns, and I've never voted for a shutdown.
Hey, Congressman Bob Davis here. How you doing?
Oh, it's great to be with you, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, Chairman, Congressman. Hey, I heard you mention at the beginning of the No Kings rally today, and I was watching it this morning on the Fox network, and it made me sick to my stomach. But I like what Speaker Johnson said yesterday. It's not the No Kings rally. It's the anti-American rally, and that's exactly what it is.
These are the same people that were protesting things about Gaza. I mean, the protests just change every day based on what their whims are. The same people, President Trump pretty historically went in there and solved the Gaza war, and you haven't heard one word from these same people. And you'll look at signs, and they'll have so many different topics that enrage them, it won't even make sense. It's not the protester class in this country, and I got a couple of opponents that are part of that protester class that are people that just can't get over that 77 million Americans made a decision last election day. They didn't like the way our country was going, and they made a decision to change it. And it's been the most drastic sea change I think the country's ever seen from one administration to the next. I mean, the president's executive orders immediately got to work, but they had this woke period. What we lived through after 2020, where, our basic fundamental institutions in this country were challenged greatly, whether it's our parents' ability to be involved in their children's school, the power that so many Democratic governors try to inflict on their citizens, and their ability to worship at the time and place of their choosing. I mean, all of the institutions in this country were broken down. Even our military. If you look at the wokeness that went into our military with all of the DEI that got baked into the cake, and you had transgendered leaders in our military that became the face of what is supposed to be the most elite fighting force the world has ever known. President Trump's erased all of that, and they have lost their mind because they thought they had changed America forever, and in fact, it was just one temporary blip and we're getting this country back to strength and greatness.
Nick, this is Russ Gugino, and I wanted to congratulate you on the award you're going to be getting next week. I wanted to let people know that Nick Langworthy is receiving the Jack Kemp Award by the Erie County Republican Committee, and so worthy of it because one of the things Jack did, and what you just spelled out, the difference between the two parties in terms of their priorities, Jack used to say, you serve your country or you serve your party best by serving your country first. And it's pretty clear that the Republican Party is serving America first, where the Democratic Party is serving themselves first. And I want to congratulate you, as I know all of us congratulate you, on being very much an example that Jack Kemp stood for putting the country's needs before the party's needs.
Hey, Russ, let me comment about next week. I'm going to be there. I can't wait to see the congressman again. But, I'm going to make a pitch on behalf of Chairman Michael Crocker. This event is going to sell out because Nick Langworthy is going to be honored. K.C. Crosby, who's the Republican National Committee co-chair, and Elise Stefanik, the next governor, Republican governor of New York State. They're all three are going to be there next week. And I know I was talking to Chairman Crocker last night. If you don't get a ticket, you're not going to get in because it's going to sell out. So contact Erie County Republican headquarters.
All right, we're going to have to take a break now, Nick. I know how valuable your time is. Hopefully you can come back at the end of this break and give us more information.
I can stick around for a little while longer.
Okay, welcome back. We have Congressman Nick Langworthy with us today with a lot of great information for everyone. So, Nick, I know you're with your beautiful daughter today, and I certainly understand how important that is when you lead the life that you lead. But I want to talk about Trump's successes, continue to talk about it. Trump's success in the Middle East. I mean, he at least got some accolades for that. It's finally.
Well, you see President Trump on the world stage, and he's very quickly becoming a foreign policy president, which is ironic because he's run all of his campaigns as a domestic leader and with a vision for us domestically, but he's reinstating America's leadership on the world stage. In the past, we had a president that it's now become evident, and even his own staff are coming forward to say that he wasn't with it. He was well past his prime. He had no business in the presidency, given his cognitive decline. And the rest of the world knew they could walk all over America. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that Vladimir Putin would have never invaded the Ukraine had President Trump been reelected in 2020. And certainly October 7th and Hamas's attack on Israel never would have happened. But he has ended that war. I am confident he can end the hostilities in the Ukraine. He's going to ramp up pressure on Putin until that happens, and I'm encouraged to see that there's more talks going on. We had President Zelensky at the White House yesterday, and there's been talks with President Putin this week. That war needs to end. It's the most bloody conflict that we've had in Europe since World War II. And I believe there's somewhere around 1 million casualties at this point. It's tragic. It's just truly needless and tragic. But we can't have it go on forever. But the president means business. And he's not going to get jerked around by Putin. And he is going to make sure that Ukraine is armed if Putin won't come to the table to end the hostilities. But his leadership on the world stage, and having all these other world leaders stand up and take notice and show their respect, I think is what America deserves. Because America does lead the way, and we're the ones paying most of the bills on the world's security. He's enforced NATO allies. And I meet with a lot of the ambassadors from the countries in NATO, and they tell me how their country's working to get up to that 5% of their GDP towards their defense, so that America's not going it alone. Because for the longest time, America just paid all the bills, and everyone else was along for the ride. While countries like Germany spent all their money on domestic priorities. Well, that's cheating the American taxpayer for conflict that's not in our neighborhood. It's important that we protect our allies. NATO is the greatest alliance the world's ever known. But there needs to be equity in the NATO alliance, and President Trump has ensured that. He certainly has his naysayers, but the end result of ending, I think, about 7 conflicts right now. There were major wars that were brewing that the president just, India and Pakistan was probably the most troubling people don't realize how close they were to all-out war. And these are, this is a religious conflict. It's an ethnic conflict, and it would be a extremely bloody exercise. President Trump just got that taken care of by the sheer force of his personality. That's what leadership is about.
That's amazing, because that's exactly right. That's what leadership is about. And he's about right-sizing our obligations over the rest of the world. We've taken too much of the responsibility. Other countries have certainly taken advantage of the United States in that, and other presidents have allowed that to take place. And Trump is going to right-size that in a lot of different ways. And tariffs is one of them, isn't it?
Tariffs are an important tool. I think we all want free trade if it's fair. If it's not fair, it shouldn't be free. Yeah, and I get a lot of static from the Buffalo TV stations about Canadian tariffs. Well, there's 85% of goods that go back and forth are not subject to any tariff because they're enshrined under the USMCA, which was the trade deal that replaced NAFTA that came during President Trump's first administration. This, the tariff discussion around Canada, I won't say it's much ado about nothing, but it is one that does not envelop all of our economy. Canada sends 68% of its goods to the United States of America. We're their biggest customer. You should treat your biggest customer pretty well. But Canadian politics has gotten in the way of us ironing out a better ironclad trade deal that's more all-encompassing, and we should get to a place where we have a bilateral agreement with Canada instead of mixing Mexico into it. They don't have the same standard of living we do. It's a totally different trade mechanism. But I have had to answer to these Buffalo reporters that they don't understand it. They're trying to convince the public that all their groceries are exploding in price because of Canadian tariffs. It's all a bunch of bull. The reality is Canada doesn't reciprocally allow our products in at a fair level. I mean, ask our dairy farmers how tough it is to try to sell their products into Canada. There's just massive tariffs, over 200% tariffs for our dairy products to go into Canada.
So
they're protectionist on the things they care about. President Trump is leveling the playing field. And I happened to be in the Oval Office as President Trump finished the trade deal with the Japanese. And I'm going to tell you what, he is a force of nature. I happened to be there. He was going to be meeting with members of the Rules Committee, and we got delayed, and finally they said, why don't you just go into the Oval and watch the president finish the Japanese trade deal? And he's sitting there, and he's got a marker, and he's crossing things off and changing numbers, and they come to the final agreement. And Marco Rubio and Scott Bessent, our Treasury Secretary, said that when the Japanese had left, that deal is 30% better than when we walked in the room. And that night, that was the biggest trade deal in the history of the world.
Wow.
Until 3 days later, when he did the same with the European Union,
yeah.
And that became the greatest deal in the
yeah.
history of the world. And there's more to come. There's more to come.
So look, Nick, I want to brag a little about what you've accomplished and what you've done to your in your constituency. So I know that you've introduced a number of bills at this point in time, legislation to secure the northern border, bills to help farmers. I mean, let's brag a little. I at least want to brag a little about what you've been able to do for your own district. So tell me some of these bills and what they mean.
Well, we have bills introduced on the northern border to make sure that we're not ignoring and sleeping on the northern border. And I want to make this law because we won't always have a President Trump. We want to make sure that every single year the Department of Homeland Security and all the relevant agencies are creating an assessment of threats on our northern border. Canada is our ally, but Canada has one of the most porous immigration laws in the Western world.
They let anybody in.
About everybody in there.
Right.
And it's easy to get to Canada, and then it gets pretty easy to get to the United States. We want to make sure, and this was when I introduced this legislation, the southern border was still on fire. The northern border was becoming the second phase of the war, where as it got harder to get in the southern border, some of the most dangerous elements were actually coming in over the northern border, and we see that in northern New York up through the areas around the waterfront there. I mean, these are places where some of the most dangerous criminal elements on an international basis were coming into the United States. We had 1,000% increase in illegal crossings at the northern border, and as you look west, we at least have bridges in water. When you go west, it's land. And there are a lot of challenges. We obviously are not going to construct a border wall on that long border with Canada. But we have drones that are a serious problem, where there's smuggling, where you have drugs that get droned into our area, and I've heard this firsthand from the U.S. Border Patrol agents that are stationed out in Grand Island, and then they take our handguns because there's such tough gun laws in Canada. A $500 handgun from the United States is worth about $5,000 in Canada. So the drones come over, they drop their load, they pick up a different load, they go back. I mean, these are things that you wouldn't have thought about 20 years ago because the technology wasn't there. So I'm very dedicated to the northern border, making sure that our U.S. Border Patrol has all the tools that they need to keep our homeland safe and keep our community safe. Because, obviously, I am there to fight for Western New York and the Southern Tier first, but, we need to make the whole country safe. Our dairy farmers, we got great provisions that I had in last year's farm bill that the Senate blocked. We got those in the big, beautiful bill. So there's better dairy pricing structure going forward for our farmers and making sure they get the right price for their milk so they can stay solvent and credible going forward. But the bill that I'm working the hardest on right now, I'm now on the Energy and Commerce Committee, and 70% of the U.S. economy flows through that committee. It's all of energy. It's all of telecommunications and technology. It's all of healthcare policy. And Kathy Hochul has enacted a ban on new residential construction with natural gas hookups. So obviously, I don't think she's going to see the light in the error of her ways. So I'm looking for a federal solution around the ban of safe and legal forms of energy. So I've introduced a bill called the Energy Choice Act. And the Energy Choice Act would be very simple, a ban of the bans. It will ban states or localities from banning safe and legal forms of energy usage in homes and commercial buildings. The bill has tremendous momentum. We were due to mark the bill up and get it out of committee on October 21st, but the Schumer shutdown is going to delay that. But additionally, we have 103 co-sponsors at this point, including some Democrats, people from all over the country whose states aren't opponents of safe and legal energy like New York is with its war on natural gas and propane. This is a life and death situation in Western New York and the Southern Tier. And it's a fight. One of the reasons I ran for Congress was this fight and taking on their Green New Deal agenda. In trying to shut it down, because it is an assault on people, especially in cold weather climates that we live in, and rural people. This mass electrification, if Winter Storm Elliott, that Christmas blizzard we had in 22, if that happened and Kathy Hochul's electrification mandate was in place at that time, instead of 69 people dying, it would have been 1,000. And I believe that in my heart, because natural gas kept people alive. If people were in EVs in those ditches, they would have been dead.
Hey, Congressman, Hochul's bill's the death sentence.
It is. It is. And our bill has momentum not just in Washington, but across New York. Over 100 municipalities, counties, towns, villages have passed resolutions endorsing my bill and sending that on to Schumer and Gillibrand and Hochul. In saying, stop the insanity, get this done. This is common sense. We all want a cleaner future for our kids and our grandkids, and we'll get there through technology and market forces, and the world is cleaner today than it was 25 years ago. But you don't build a bridge until you don't tear down a bridge until you built the new one. And natural gas is that bridge energy to the future until we can get to more prolific nuclear in ways to more effectively create electricity. And we have hundreds and hundreds of years ahead of us in natural gas, some sitting in the ground in the Southern Tier in my district that they won't even let us mine for. So it is a great frustration, but we have momentum. When we get this government reopened, we will get it marked up and out of committee, and I've been working with our Majority Leader, Steve Scalise, to make sure it gets across the floor.
All right, we need to take a short break here, Nick. Are you able to stay with us for another segment?
I do have to go coach girls basketball.
Good for you.
So.
Okay. You go take care.
Thank you so much for having me.
Congressman,
Thank you.
See you Friday night.
Bye-bye.
Right.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. So you're listening to The Patriot, 1270 AM radio. You have a number of ways to listen to us. You can certainly listen to us at 1270 AM. You can go online to the 1270thepatriot.com. You can listen on your mobile app at Buffalo Patriot mobile app, or you can easily ask Alexa. Just say, Alexa, open 1270 The Patriot. So now we have another great congressman, New York State Congressman. Hold on a second. We have another great congressman, Mike Lawler. I got to know Mike a while back. Mike has an excellent history. He's a great advocate for what we believe in. So Mike was elected to the New York Assembly in 2020. And then in 2022, after one term, he ran a primary and was elected to the 17th Congressional District. And so re-elected again in 24. So, Mike, do I have you? I know we got a few technical difficulties here. Do I have you on? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Are you there?
He's there. He's
okay. So, Mike, I know you have a hard break at 11:50 that you got to go on Fox News. I appreciate you being here. Nick Langworthy told me he would have had a hard break earlier. So, tell me, I want to ask you about Mondami in New York City. What's going on there? What are we looking forward to or not looking forward to?
Well, Ralph, it's a disaster for New York. This is a situation where you have an avowed socialist engaged in Marxist theory who refuses to condemn Hamas, a terrorist organization, wouldn't call for them to lay down their arms in an interview on Fox News just this week, and has continued to engage in anti-Semitism. He's pushing for a $9 billion tax increase on New Yorkers to pay for his radical programs, including freezing the rent, free busing, government-run grocery stores, defunding the police, shutting down prisons, legalizing prostitution. It's insanity. And unfortunately, it looks like he is on the verge of becoming mayor of New York.
It certainly,
and it will lead to the mass exodus, certainly out of the city. But it'll be a big problem for New York State.
So do you see New York business people willing to embrace Mondami? I mean, are the business people in New York going to be supportive of this type of an election, this type of government?
I don't see it. We've already seen New York lead the nation in out-migration. We've lost a ton of tax revenue, and our tax base has depleted as businesses move out of state. The financial services industry moving to Florida, to Palm Beach, to Dallas, Texas, to Atlanta. It is creating a long-term calamity for New York. When J.P. Morgan Chase now has more employees in Dallas than they do in New York, that's a problem. It's a big problem.
A huge problem, right?
I think folks have to wake up and realize that these types of radical policies, from the defunding of police to cashless bail to massive tax hikes. I mean, Zoran has talked about banning private property ownership and seizing private property. This is just insanity at the highest levels, and unfortunately, the people that are going to suffer are the New Yorkers that rely heavily on the social safety net, because the people who can afford to leave will leave.
Yeah. Hey, Congressman Bob Davis here. Got to ask you, what are your thoughts about the anti-American rally today?
I think they're disgraceful. I mean, look, this whole no kings nonsense. No, we don't have a king. In fact, we have a constitutional republic, and the American people spoke last November when they elected President Trump, and they elected Republican majorities in the Senate and the House. And yet Democrats who lecture everybody about protecting democracy and fighting back against threats to democracy don't seem to like democracy. They don't seem to like that the people spoke in the election. And rather than trying to protest, and try to tear down our capitalist institutions, tear down our government institutions, they should recognize that maybe it's their message. Maybe it's the policy positions that they have put forth that the American people reject. And instead of reflecting on that, they're doubling down on it. And so, when you see these pro-Hamas groups that are joining today at these protests that are, all the ceasefire now people who are silent as Hamas assassinates Palestinians in the streets with the ceasefire in effect, it just speaks volumes to the hypocrisy and the absurdity of their argument.
So, Mike, look, I know what a difficult election you had in 2024, how much money they put up against you, but you were successful. I mean, personally, I look for great things for you. I certainly thought about you running for becoming our governor and thought you had an excellent chance. Obviously, I have all good things to say about Elise. Schumer, is going to be up for election. There are things ahead of you. You ran a tough race. How much money did they put against you?
Well, when I won in 2022 and defeated the chair of the DCCC, my race was about $25 million.
Ooh.
Last year, it was $42 million. And so this coming year, 2026, I expect it'll be about $60 million.
Wow!
Just for one congressional seat, and it speaks to the importance of my seat. Part of the reason why I ultimately decided to stay in Congress.
I understand, and I appreciate, because I really think you'd be an excellent governor, and I think you do a great job. But I realize the dynamics and what. To me, it is all about this next election, whether we can accomplish what Trump wants to accomplish, what the United States needs, is all going to be all about, keeping our seats both in the House and in the Senate. And you being there, you being the ability to win that race is certainly important.
No question, and one of only 3 Republican members in a seat Kamala Harris won. That's the difference between us having a majority and not. We're at 220. We'd be at 217 if we didn't hold my seat and the 2 others. And so there's a lot at stake. We wouldn't secure the border. We wouldn't cut taxes. We wouldn't have a peace agreement and a ceasefire in the Middle East without strong Republican leadership. So there's a lot of issues at stake. The election next year is going to be vital, and if folks want to support us and help keep the majority, they should go to lawlerforcongress.com and support our efforts.
Look, I want everybody to support you. I know you got to go on Fox News, and I know you got to take a break. I want you back as soon as I possibly can have you back, so I'll be in touch with your people to see about doing it. I greatly appreciate you being here, Congressman. Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
Thank you. All right, everyone. So now we're going to shift to what's happened at the Court of Appeals. So, as you may be aware, there was a bill passed in the legislature, signed into law by Kathy Hochul, to change all elections, well, not all, but to change elections, the great majority of elections, to even years. So they want to put our local elections on for the even years, the gubernatorial year and the presidential year. And they're doing this again, because they believe that in those years there'll be more Democrats out to vote and they win more elections. It's more about them than it is about the electorate. It's more about the fact that they want to control as much as they possibly can control. Now, they say it's a cost-saving device, but that's far from the truth. We're going to bring on Joe Burns. So we're going to call Joe Burns and bring him on for a couple of minutes. We only have a few minutes, but I'd like to bring him on to talk to you. So Joe Burns is a stellar election attorney. He's got a history with the election law. He worked for the Board of Elections. He now works for a major Washington firm. He writes, oftentimes you'll see his writing in another voice in the Buffalo News. But he writes articles all the time. He's on top of this stuff. And So let's see how quickly we can bring him on. We only have a few minutes before a hard break, but do we have you, Joe, on? Okay. So what happened is this. Oh, Joe, are you there?
I'm here, Ralph. How are you?
Okay, perfect. So, Joe, can you give us we only have a couple minutes, but can you give us a quick history? The bill got passed. The bill got signed. There was a lawsuit against it. It won in the lower courts, and take it from there.
Yeah, so it was the challenge to the even-year election law was successful in trial court. Unfortunately, the appellate division, 4th Department, went the other way. Said that the even-year election law was constitutional, didn't violate Article 9 of the state constitution. And just this week, the State Court of Appeals affirmed that decision from the appellate division, so that now you'll have virtually all local offices, mostly town and county offices, moving to be run on even-year cycles, along with candidates for Congress, state legislature, president, and governor.
And so what does that do, in your opinion? How does that help or hurt those people running for office, and how does it work in terms of, the electorate?
It certainly changes the political dynamics. As I've said before, what is a candidate for, say, town board or town supervisor or county legislator going to do when they're trying to compete for attention along with candidates for Congress or Assembly or Senate? It seems very hard to believe that someone running for a town office, let's say, that might only be spending a couple $1,000s in the course of their campaign is going to be able to get their message out when you have candidates for state legislature spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in an election cycle, candidates for Congress spending $1 million or millions. Very, very difficult, and I think you're going to see a lot of local voices and local concerns drowned out.
Hey, Joe, it's Bob Davis here. When is that going to take effect? For example, we got Christina Coyle-Lenz running for the county legislature in our hometown, Amherst. Will she have to run again next year? And what about Dan Gagliardo, who's running for supervisor this year? Is he going to have to run again next year?
Well, so what's going to happen with those offices, a two-year office, like, for instance, Erie County legislator, they're going to have to certainly run this year, but they'll be running for a one-year term, have to run again next year for a two-year term, and that moves the cycle for that office to be elected on the gubernatorial, or I guess I should say, the odd-year cycle. For someone running in a four-year office, for instance, Amherst Town Supervisor, they'd be running now for a three-year term, then followed by four-year terms.
So even though
how it moves them.
So here, we've got to take a break at this point. I appreciate, Joe, you giving us a little bit of explanation. We'll bring you back. Thanks.
You bet. Thanks, Ralph. Bye-bye.